Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our loan calculator series into this single video. So I hope that you will find this video useful. In this video, we are basically creating a loan calculator or an EMI calculator from scratch using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And I will also show you how to add it to a Blogger website. And I will also leave the link of the source code in the description of this video, so you can go ahead and check that out. Alright, so let's get started. Now this is how it works. We can see that we have the option of entering the amount, the interest rate and the tenure. And then we can see that the loan EMI, the total interest payable and also the total amount will be displayed over here. And we also have this chart over here where it displays the total interest and the principal loan amount. Now let's go ahead and change this value to something else. Let's type 80,000 over here and let's click on calculate. And we can see that the loan EMI and the interest and the total amount is displayed over here. And we also have the chart updated over here. So this is how it works. We're going to create everything from scratch using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And this is also responsive. So if I decrease the width of the browser window, we can see we have a different layout for all the elements, and it looks alright in the mobile version as well. Alright, so here I have created this folder called loan calculator and I just opened it with VS Code. So let's go ahead and create a new file. So let's click on new file and we'll just create an HTML file. I'll just name it index.html. And we also need to have a CSS file. So let's create a new file and let's name it style.css. And we also need to have a JavaScript file. I'll just name it main.js. Let's start with the index.html file. Now in VS Code you can just press exclamation and press tab and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. And let's link our CSS file over here. So I'll just type link and press tab. And in the href I'll just type style.css. And we'll also link our JavaScript over here. So I'll just type script:/src and press tab. And here I'll just type main.js. Alright, let's start by creating a container division. So let's give it a class of loan calculator. And in this we will have a division with the class of top for this top section over here. So let's create a division with the class of top. And in that we need to have a heading for loan calculator. So let's create an h2 and here I'll just type loan calculator. And then we'll create a form to add these input fields. So let's create a form and let's create a division for holding each of these input fields. So let's create a division with the class of group. And here we will have a division with the class of title for this title. So I'll just type dot title. And here I'll just type amount. And then we need to have the input field. So here I'll just type input. And for the type I'll just keep it to text. And then we will give it a class of loan amount. And we'll also add a default value over here. So I'll just type value. And we'll just add the default value to 20,000. Alright, now let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you do that, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on Open with Live Server. Alright, now we can see that our design is displayed over here in the browser. Let's go ahead and continue with our HTML. Next we need to have the interest rate. So I'll just copy this group and I'll just paste it down 2 more times. And here we need to have interest rate. And here for the value I'll just type 7.5 by default. And here for the class I'll just type interest rate. And then we have the tenure. So here I'll just type tenure in months. And for the default value I'll just type, let's say 120. And here for the class I'll just type loan tenure. Right, that's it with all the input fields. So here we can see the 3 input fields are displayed over here. Now the next thing we will do is we'll create a division with the class of result to add all these elements. So let's go back and let's create a division. So here I'll just create a division with the class of result. And in this we need to have a left part and a right part. So in the left part we will have these details over here. So here let's create a division with the class of loan EMI. And in this we need to have an S3 for the heading. So I'll just type S3, and here I'll just type loan EMI. And then for this value, I'll just create a division with the class of value. And for the value, I'll just type some random number for now. And let's go ahead and copy this division. And we'll just paste it 2 more times. And then for the second division, we will have a class of total interest. And here for the heading, I'll just type total interest payable. And then for the value, I'll just type some random value. And the next division is total amount. So I'll just change the class to total amount. And for the heading, I'll just change this to total amount. And here I'll just type some random value. Alright, now the next thing we need to do is create this button. So let's create a button, and we'll give it a class of calculate button. And here for the text, I'll just type calculate. And then we need to have a chart on the right. So here we have the left division. So let's create a right division over here. So I'll just create a division with the class of right. And here we will have the chart. So for now, I'll just type chart over here. Right, now let's go back to our design, and we can see that all the elements are displayed over here. Now let's start styling this. So let's go to our style.css file, and first of all, let's target the loan calculator, which is the container division. So let's type .loan calculator. And we'll give it a font family of Roboto and sans serif. And let's set the width to 600 pixels. And we will set the margin to 24 pixels top and bottom, and auto for left and right so that it will be in the center. Now let's give it a background color of white, and we will add a box shadow. So I'll just type box shadow, and let's set the values to 0, 12 pixels, 50 pixels, negative 11 pixels, RGBA, and 0, 0, 0, and 0.2. Alright, now let's add some rounded corners. So I'll just type border radius, and let's set it to 8 pixels. And we'll set the color of all the text to 1421 3D. Alright, now let's style the top division. So here we can see we have created a division with the class of top. So let's style that. Here I'll just type loan calculator top, and let's set the background color to the dark color 1421 3D, and let's set the color of the text to white, and we'll set a padding of 32 pixels. Alright, now let's style this heading. So let's type loan calculator top h2, and let's set a margin top of 0. Right now we want all these groups to be one next to the other. So let's target the form. So I'll just type loan calculator form, and let's set the display to flex. And we'll also set a gap of 8 pixels between each of them, and we'll set the justify content to space between, so that they have the correct spacing. Now we will have some gap between the title and this input field. So let's tap loan calculator, and we had given it a class of title. So let's set the margin bottom to 16 pixels. And now we can see that the border radius is not being displayed over here on the top division. So for that we have to go over here to the container division, which is the loan calculator, and we have to set the overflow to hidden, so that anything outside this division is not visible. And now we can see we have the rounded corners. Right now let's style these input fields. So let's type loan calculator form input, and let's set the font size to 20 pixels, and we will add a padding of 8 pixels top and bottom and 24 pixels left and right, and we'll set the width to 100%. And now we can see we don't have the correct width for all of these elements because of the padding. So for that, let's go over here to the top, and we will add a line of code called box sizing border box. So let's tap loan calculator, and also loan calculator and all the elements inside that. So I'll just tap asterisk over here, and here I'll just tap box sizing and set it to border box. Now what happens is that it will include the padding and the border of the element inside the width of the element. So now we can see we have the correct width. So let's scroll down. And now let's style the result. So I'll just type dot result. Or let's type loan calculator dot result. Now we want these elements to be on the left and this chart to be on the right. So here I'll just type display of flex. And let's type justify content and space between. so that both the elements are on the extreme left and right. And let's also bring it to the center vertically. So I'll just type align items to the center. Right now let's style the left part. So I'll just type loan calculator, result left, and let's set the width to 100%. And we'll set the padding to 8 pixels top and bottom, and 32 pixels left and right. If we give it a background color, we can see that we have this full width for the left division. But when we will add the chart, it will take up the space that it needs. So let's remove this background color. Alright, now let's style these headings. So for the headings, we have an S3, I think. So here we can see we have an S3. So let's style that. So here let's type loan calculator, left S3. And let's set the font size to 16 pixels and the font weight to 400. And we will have a margin bottom of 8 pixels. Alright, now let's style these values. So for the values, we have a division with the class of value. So let's style that. Here I'll just type loan calculator, result value. And let's set the font size to 30 pixels. And let's set the font weight to 900. And we will have a padding bottom of 10 pixels. And we'll also have some border at the bottom. So I'll just type border bottom. And let's set it 1 pixel solid. And we will have a color of RGBA 20, 33, 61 and 0.2 for the opacity. Now you can also add the currency that you want over here on the left. So you can use a before selector for that. So here I'll just type loan calculator, result value colon before. And here I'll just type content. And here in the content you can type the currency. I'll just type dollar symbol. Now we can see we have the currency displayed over here. Let's add some styles. So I'll just type font size and I'll just set it to 18 pixels, or let's increase it to 24 pixels. And let's set the font weight to 400. And we'll also add some margin right. So I'll just type margin right and let's set it to 20 pixels, or I think 10 pixels. I think 6 pixels. It looks alright. You can go ahead and play with these values and style this to your needs. I will also set the opacity to, let's say, 0.4. Alright, now let's style this calculate button. So for that we have a button with the class of calculate button. So here I'll just type loan calculator calculate button. And for this we will have a background color of E63946. And let's set the color of the text to white. And we'll also remove the border. So I'll just type border none. And let's set a padding of 8 pixels top and bottom and 32 pixels left and right. And we'll also add rounded corners. So I'll just type border radius and set it to 8 pixels. And let's set the font size to 18 pixels. And let's set the font weight to 900. And we'll also set the cursor to pointer so that when we hover over this, we have this pointer. And let's also add some margin top. So I'll just type margin and 24 pixels for top and bottom and 0 for left and right. And I think that looks alright. We'll also add some basic styles for the mobile version. So let's tap at media. And here we'll just type max width of 650 pixels. Now when the width of the browser is less than 650 pixels, we will set the width of the loan calculator to 90% of the screen. So I'll just type 90%. And we'll also add a max width of 500 pixels. And let's decrease the width of this browser window. And now we can see when we decrease the width of the browser window, we have a max width of 500 pixels. And when we decrease the width even more, it changes back to 90%. Now we'll also bring all these elements one below the other. So here we'll just type loan calculator form, and we'll set the flex direction to column. So now we can see all these elements are one below the other. And we'll also increase the gap a little bit. So let's type gap and let's set it to 16 pixels. I think we can increase it a little bit more. So I'll just type 20 pixels. And that looks alright. Now let's go ahead and position these elements one below the other. So we will have these details at the top, and then we'll have this calculate button, and then we'll have the chart. So let's target the result division. So I'll just type loan calculator result, and let's set the flex direction to column, and we'll also set the text align to center. And now we can see everything looks alright. We have the chart over here. So that's basically it with the styling of our loan calculator. Now in this video, we will add the JavaScript to calculate the loan EMI, the total interest payable, and also the total amount. So the result will be calculated based on the values that we enter over here in these three input fields. Alright, here is our code, and we have written all of this in the previous video. And we have also linked our JavaScript file over here. Alright, now the first thing we will do is we will reference all of the elements that we need into our JavaScript. So we need to reference these three input fields. We have these classes loan amount, interest rate, and loan tenure. And then we need to reference these values. So we need to reference the loan EMI value over here. And then we need to reference this total interest value. And then also this total amount value. And then the last thing we need to reference is this calculate button. So we have this class calculate button over here. So let's reference all of this in our JavaScript. So let's go to our main.js file. And first of all, let's reference all these three input fields. So we have these classes loan amount, interest rate, and loan tenure. So here I'll just create a constant. I'll just name it loan amount input. And here we'll just type document.querySelector. And we have a class of loan amount. And then the next thing we will reference is the interest rate. So I'll just type interest rate input, and I'll just set it equal to document.querySelector, and here I'll just type interest rate. And the next thing we will reference is the loan tenure. So I'll just type loan tenure input, and we'll set it equal to document.querySelector, and here I'll just type loan tenure. Alright, now let's reference the values. So let's scroll down, and here we can see for the loan EMI, we have this division with the class of loan EMI, and in that we have this division with the class of value. And in the same way, we have this class of total interest, and then we have this class of total amount. So let's reference these. So here we'll just type const loan EMI value equals document.querySelector, and we have a class called loan EMI, and in that we have a class called value. Now in the same way, let's reference the total interest. So I'll just type total interest value, and I'll just set it equal to document.querySelector, and we have a class called total interest, and in that we have the value class. And then let's type const total amount value equals document.querySelector, and here we'll just type total amount and value. Now let's reference this calculate button. So we have a class of calculate button over here. So let's reference that. Here let's type const calculate button equals document.querySelector calculate button. Alright, now the next thing we will do is we'll convert the values that we get from this input field into a number. So we'll convert it into a float, which is a decimal number. So for that, let's create a variable. So I'll just type let. And for the loan amount, I'll just create a variable called loan amount. And here we need to type parse float. So this will convert anything that we have inside this parenthesis into a float. So let's type loan amount input dot value. Now in the same way, let's create variables for the interest rate and also the loan tenure. So let's type let interest rate equals parse float, and here let's type interest rate input dot value, and let's type let loan tenure equals parse float and loan tenure input dot value. Now here's the formula that we're going to use to calculate the EMI. And here we can see R is the rate of interest calculated on monthly basis. So the value of R is basically interest rate divided by 12 divided by 100. So let's create a variable for that so that it's easy for us to calculate. So I'll just type let interest equals, and here I'll just type interest rate divided by 12 divided by 100. Alright, now the next thing we will do is we'll create a function to calculate the EMI. So let's create a function called calculate EMI. And in this function, we will add the formula to calculate the EMI. So let's create a variable called EMI, and we'll set it equal to the formula. So here you can see the formula on the screen. So let's type loan amount times interest, which is interest rate divided by 12 divided by 100, times And here we'll create a parenthesis, and here I'll just type 1 plus interest, and we need to raise this to the loan tenure. So for that we will use a JavaScript function. So I'll just type math.pow to raise it to the power. So here I'll just type comma, and we will raise it to the loan tenure. So I'll just type loan tenure over here, and we need to divide this by the same value minus 1. So I'll just copy this and paste it over here, and here I'll just type minus 1, and we need to add a parenthesis over here, and we need to close it over here. So this is our formula. Now let's return this EMI value. So I'll just type return EMI. Now the next thing we will do is we'll create a function to update all the values. So if you go back to our Chrome, here we can see we have these values over here. So we need to update all these divisions. So for that we have already referenced it over here. So here we can see loan EMI value, total interest value, and total amount value. So we need to update all these values. So let's create a function for that. Here let's type const update data, and let's create a function over here. Now in this function we will take the EMI as an argument, and we will update all the values based on the EMI. So the first thing we will do is update the loan EMI value. So just type loan EMI value dot inner HTML, and we will round it. So I'll just type math.round, and here I'll just type EMI. The next thing we will update is the total amount. So the total amount is basically EMI times the loan tenure. So let's create a variable for that. So I'll just type let total amount equals loan tenure times EMI, and we will round this value as well. So I'll just type math.round, and I'll just add this inside the parenthesis. Now here I'll just type total amount value. So this is the variable. So I'll just type total amount value dot inner HTML, and we need to set the HTML to the total amount. Alright, now the next thing we will update is the total interest payable. So the total interest payable is basically the total amount minus the loan amount. So let's create a variable for that. So I'll just type total interest payable equals math.round, and here I'll just type total amount minus loan amount. Alright, now let's add this value to our total interest value. So here I'll just type total interest value dot inner HTML equals total interest payable. Alright, now the next thing we will do is we'll call these two functions. So let's create a function called init, and here we'll call the function calculate EMI, and this function returns us the EMI value. So I'll just store it inside a variable. So I'll just type let EMI equals calculate EMI. Alright, now let's call this function update data. So this should be data. So here I'll just type update data, and here I'll just pass the EMI value. Alright, now let's call this function over here. So I'll just type init, and let's go back to our browser and let's see whether it works. And we seem to have some problems in the formula because the value is not correct. So let's right click over here and click on inspect, and let's go over here to console, and we don't have any errors over here. So let's check out the values. So first of all, let's type loan amount, and we have the correct value displayed over here. Let's type interest rate, and we have the correct value. Let's type loan tenure, and even for the loan tenure we have a value of 20,000. So we have to change it. So let's go back to our code and let's scroll up, and here we can see for the loan tenure we are adding the loan amount input. So let's change this to loan tenure input. So let's type loan tenure input. Alright, now let's go back and let's see whether it works. And now we can see we have the correct values: 237, 8,488, and 28,488. Now let's go ahead and change this value. So let's go back to our HTML. Let's change the values over here. So I'll just change this to 30,000, and let's change the interest to 8.5, and let's change the value of the month to 240. Alright, now let's save this and let's go back to our browser, and now we can see we have the updated result over here. So everything is working alright. Alright, now the last thing we will do in this video is to make this calculate button work. So let's go back to our VS Code and let's go to our main.js file, and here we have already created this constant for the calculate button. So let's add an event listener for that. So here let's type calculate btn dot add event listener, and we will listen for the click event, and let's create an arrow function over here. And we'll just copy these 2 lines of code from here and paste it over here. Right now let's go back to our Chrome and let's see whether it works. So let's change this back to 20 and let's click on calculate, and we can see that the value is not being updated. So let's right click over here and let's click on inspect. And if you go to our console and if I just type loan amount, we can see that the value is still 30,000 over here. So the value has not been updated. So for that, let's go back to our code and let's create a function to update all the values. So let's create a function called refresh input values. And here just copy all of these 3 lines of code and also this line of code over here for the interest and paste it over here. And we need to remove this let from here because we are not creating a new variable. We are just assigning these values to the variable. So I'll just remove all the let. Right now let's call this function over here inside the calculate button. So I'll just type refresh input values. Right now let's go back to our browser and let's change this to 20 and let's click on calculate. And now we can see that the values have changed. So everything is working all right. Let's change something over here as well. And let's change this to 120 and let's click on calculate, and we have the result displayed over here. Now if you go back to our code, we can see that we have the same code over here and here as well. We just have this function called refresh input values. So I'll just copy this from here and paste it over here in the init function, and we can directly call the init function over here inside this event listener. So I'll just delete all of this and here let's tap init. Alright, now let's go back and let's see whether it works. So let's change this to 20 and let's click on calculate, and the values are not being updated. So let's right click over here and click on inspect and let's see whether we have any errors. So let's go to console, and here we can see cannot access refresh input values before initialization. So let's go back, and here we can see we have created this function over here after the init. So we have to cut this from here and we had to paste it before the init function over here. Alright, now it should work. So let's go back and let's change this to 20,000 and let's click on calculate, and we can see that the values are updated. So everything is working alright. So that's basically how you write the code to calculate the EMI using JavaScript. Now this is our progress as of now. We have created all of this and we have also added the functionality to display these results over here. Now the last thing we need to do is add this chart over here. So here we can see we have this chart which displays the total interest and the principal loan amount. Alright, here's the source code of our loan calculator. Now for the chart, we're going to be using a library called chart.js. So you can just go to this website called chartjs.org and just click on get started. And here we can see a guide of how to add the chart to our website. So the first thing we need to do is add the CDN. So let's click on this link to get the CDN. I'll just open this in a new tab. And here you can see the CDN link. So let's click on this button and click on copy HTML. And let's go back to our code and let's go to the HTML. And here we will paste the link of the CDN. So I'll just paste it over here just before the body ends. And then the next thing we need to do is copy this line of code to add the canvas. So let's copy this and let's go back to our HTML and I'll just paste it over here in place of this chart. So I'll just delete this and paste it over here. Alright, now to add the chart, we have to add this code over here. So let's copy all of this from here. And we need to make some changes in this code, but first of all, we'll just copy this. So let's copy this from here and let's go to our JavaScript file. And here I'll just create a function. So I'll just name it display chart. So I'll just type const display chart. And I'll just create this function over here. And I'll just paste the code over here. Right now let's go ahead and make some changes over here. So the first thing we need to do is change the type of the chart to a pie chart. So I'll just delete bar from here and I'll just type pie. And the next thing we need to do is we need to just have 2 values over here. So if you go back to our original design, here we can see we have the total interest payable and also the principal amount. So let's go back and I'll just change these values over here. So here I'll just type total interest. And here I'll just type principal loan amount. And let's delete all the rest of these values. And the next thing we will do is we'll just remove this line of code for the labels. And here for the data we need to have just two values. So I'll just delete all of this. And we don't know the value that we're going to get in this data as of now. Now the value is going to change depending on the input field values. So for that I'll just pass some variable over here inside this display chart function, and we'll use that over here. So here I'll just pass a variable called total interest payable value. And we'll also pass one more variable called total amount value. Now we're going to use these variables over here inside the data. So here I'll just type total interest payable value. And we'll also type total amount value. Alright, now let's set the background color. So I'll just delete all of this. And we need to have two values over here. So I'll just create the first color. I'll just type hash. And the first color we're going to have is E63946. And the next color we're going to have is 14213D. And we don't want to have any border, so I'll just delete all of this. And I'll just set the border width to 0. And we also don't need to have any of these options, so I'll just delete all of this. Alright, that's it with our display chart function. Now the next thing we need to do is call this function display chart. So let's scroll down and we'll call this function over here inside the update data function. So here I'll just type display chart. And we need to pass two variables over here. We need to pass the total interest payable and also the total amount. So let's scroll down. And here we can see we have the total interest payable. So I'll just pass it over here. I'll just type total interest payable. And we also need to pass the total amount. So I'll just type total amount. Alright, now let's save this and let's go back to our browser. Let's go to the website. Now here we can see that the chart is displayed over here. Now we need to reduce the width of this chart. So let's go back to our code and let's go to the CSS. And in our HTML we can see that we have created this division with the class of right. So we will add some styles to the right. Here I'll just type loan calculator right, and I'll just set the width to 50%. And now let's go back. And now we can see we have the correct width for the chart. Now let's go ahead and change this value and let's see whether the chart updates. So let's change this to 7.5 and let's click on calculate. And we can see that the values have changed, but the chart has not updated. So let's right click over here and go to inspect. And let's go to the console, and here we can see we have an error. Canvas is already in use. And here we can see it says that the chart with this ID must be destroyed before the canvas can be reused. So let's go back to our JavaScript. And here we can see we are creating this constant called myChart. And we are assigning this new chart to this myChart constant. So what I will do is I'll just remove this const from here. And I'll just create a variable over here for the myChart. So I'll just type let myChart. Now we're going to assign this new chart to this myChart variable. Now let's create a function to update the chart. So here I'll just type const update chart. And here I'll just create this function over here. And here also we will pass these two variables. So I'll just copy these and I'll just paste it over here. And to update the chart, you have to just type the chart name. So I'll just type my chart. And then you have to type data.datasets 0. And then you have to type data 0 for the first data. So the first data is the total interest payable. So I'll just type equals total interest payable value. And then we need to type mychart.data.datasets 0. And we'll type data, and for the second value we'll just type 1 over here because it starts from 0. And here I'll just type total amount value. And then you have to call a function on myChart called update. Now this update is a function that comes by default with the chart.js library. Now the next thing we will do is let's scroll down, and here in the update data function we will call the display chart function at the beginning, and then we need to call the update chart function. So here I'll just type if, and here I'll just type myChart. So this will check whether the myChart variable is available. So if we have a chart already assigned to this myChart variable, then we will call the update chart function. So I'll just type update chart. And if the myChart variable is null, then it means that the function is running for the first time. So we will call this function called display chart. And here we'll just type else. And we also need to pass these variables over here inside this update chart function. So I'll just type total interest payable and total amount. Alright, now let's save this and let's go back to our browser. And let's change some value over here and let's see whether the chart is updated. So let's change this to 7.5 and let's click on calculate, and we can see that the chart has updated. Now let's see whether the chart is being displayed correctly. So let's go back to our original design, and here we can see we have 20,000, 7.5 and 240, and we should have the same chart displayed. So we need to type these values 20,000, 7.5 and 240. So let's add that over here, 20,000, 7.5 and 240. Let's click on calculate, and we can see we have a different chart, but the values over here are correct. So I think we have some problems in the chart. We are not giving the correct values. So let's go back to our JavaScript code, and here we have a mistake. We don't need to have this total amount value. We need to have the loan amount. So we can just delete this from here, and here I'll just type loan amount, because we already have this loan amount variable over here globally, so we can directly access that. So I'll do the same over here for this update chart. We need to remove this from here, and here we need to type loan amount, and then here when we call this function we need to pass just the first variable. So the second variable is the loan amount. Right now this should work. So let's go back to our browser and let's change the values to 20,000, 7.5 and 240, and let's see whether we have this same chart. So just change this to 20,000 and 7.5, and let's click on calculate. And now we can see we have the same chart displayed over here. So it is working all right. So that's basically how you add a chart to your loan calculator. In the previous videos, we have been creating this loan calculator using HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and we have completed the project. So we can see that everything is displayed over here. If we change some of these values, so for example, if I change this to 12 and if I click on calculate, we can see that the results are updated and also the chart is updated. So this loan calculator is completely functional. Now the last thing I want to add in this project is input validation. So whenever you receive any input from the user, you have to check whether the input is valid. You should never trust any user input. So in this video, I'll show you how to validate the user input, and whenever the user inputs an invalid data, we need to stop the calculation and we need to correct the data over here, or we need to notify the user of the invalid input. So right now if I just add a random input, so if I just type some characters over here, and now if I press calculate, and now we can see everything in our application breaks. So we need to stop this. Whenever the user inputs any invalid input, we should change this to a valid input. Right here I'm in the source code of our project. So let's scroll down and let's create a function for checking the input. So here I'll just create a function. Let's name it check values. And first of all, let's store all the input values inside variables. So we need to get the values of loan amount input, interest rate input and loan tenure input. So let's create variables for that. So I'll just type let, and I'll just type loan amount value equals loan amount input dot value, and in the same way let's type interest rate value equals interest rate input dot value, and we also need to have loan tenure. So let's type loan tenure value equals loan tenure input dot value. So this will get the values inside these input fields and store them inside these variables over here. Alright, now the next thing we will do is we'll create a regular expression. So let's type let, and we will name it regex number. And now let's write the regular expression. So for that you have to type / and let's close this over here. And then you have to start the regular expression with this symbol right here. This symbol is just above the number 6. I think it's called the caret symbol. And then for the range, I'll just type square brackets, and in that we will type 0 to 9. And here we need to type plus and dollar symbol. So this is a regular expression for numbers from 0 through 9. You can easily find these regular expressions on the internet. Just search for regular expression for numbers and you'll find this. So let's go ahead and create an if condition. And here let's type if the loan amount value doesn't match this regular expression. So for that you have to type exclamation for negating the if condition, and let's type loan amount value dot match, and here we'll just pass this regular expression. So let's type regex number. Now if you have anything other than a number inside this loan amount value, then we will set the input field to a default value. So let's type loan amount input dot value, and by default let's set it to 10,000. So now whenever someone enters an invalid input in the loan amount value, then we will change the input value to 10,000. Alright, now let's check whether this works. So let's scroll down and let's call this function called check values. So here in the calculate EMI function, I'll just call the function. So I'll just type check values. And once we check the values, we also need to refresh the values. So if we scroll down, we can see we have this function called refresh input values. So I'll just delete this from here and let's scroll up and I'll just paste the function over here. Now this refresh input values function just refreshes all the values over here. So here we can see we refresh all the values. Now if you don't understand this, you can watch my previous video. I have explained how to create this function in that video. So let's scroll up. Right now let's save this and let's go back to our browser. And let's add an invalid input over here. So I'll just type some characters. And let's click on calculate. And we can see that the input value defaults to 10,000 and we don't have any problems in the result and the chart. Now I haven't added the option of adding decimal values over here. So if I just change this to, let's say 10.2, and if I press calculate, we can see that it goes back to 10,000, because in our regular expression we are just checking for the values 0 through 9. So it doesn't accept a decimal point. And now if you go back and add some valid input over here, so if I just type 30,000 and press calculate, we can see that the result is displayed for this value over here. Right now let's do the same for this tenure. So let's go back and here we'll just type if, and we'll type exclamation, and let's type loan tenure value dot match and regex number. And for the loan tenure value, I just set the input value to 12. So just type 12 over here. And now let's go back, and if I just add some invalid input over here and if I just press calculate, we can see that the input field defaults to 12 and we have the results based on this value right here. Now if I add some valid input over here and if I press calculate, we can see that we have the result displayed over here. Right now let's go ahead and do the same for the interest rate. Now for the interest rate, we need to have decimal points as well. So we need to create a different regular expression. So let's type let regex and we'll name it decimal number. And for this we have to type / for the regular expression, and here we'll type the caret symbol, and in parentheses I'll just type /d for any number, and then we'll type asterisk to have any number of values, and then we will type backslash and point for a decimal point, and outside this parenthesis I'll just type question mark \d for a number, and then we'll have a plus symbol and a $sign. Alright, this is the regular expression for a decimal value. Alright, now let's create an if condition and let's type exclamation interest rate value dot match, and here we'll just type regex decimal number, and we'll set the default value of the interest rate input to 7.5. Alright, now let's go back and let's test it out. So let's change this to an invalid input and let's click on calculate. And now we can see we have an interest rate of 7.5 by default. And if I add a valid input over here, so if I just type 12.5 and press calculate, we can see that the result is displayed for this input over here. So that's basically how you add input validation for your loan calculator. Alright, now let's go to the dashboard of our Blogger website, and let's go ahead and create a new post. So let's click on new post, and I'll just title this loan calculator. And now the first thing you have to do is click on this button and click on HTML view. So by default it will be in the compose view, so you have to change it to the HTML view so that we can add HTML, CSS and JavaScript over here. Alright, now let's go to our source code and let's copy all of this from here. So first of all, let's copy the CSS. So I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. Alright, now let's copy all of this and let's go back to our post and let's create a style tag. So I'll just create a style tag over here and I'll just close it over here. And here in the style tag, I will paste the CSS. Right now, the next thing we will do is add the HTML. So I'll just go outside the style tag and let's go back to our source code and let's go to the HTML file and let's copy everything from the start of the division to the end, and we'll also copy the link of this chart min.js file. So let's copy all of this and let's go back to our post and paste it over here. Alright, now the last thing we need to do is add the JavaScript. So let's create a script tag over here. So just tap script and close it over here. Alright, now let's go back to our source code and let's go to the main.js file, and I'll just copy everything from here. And let's go back and paste it over here inside the script tag. Alright, now let's click on publish and let's click on confirm. And let's see whether it is being displayed over here. So let's click on this view button. And here we can see that the loan calculator is displayed over here. So everything looks alright, but we don't have the numbers displayed over here. So if I select this, we can see that we have white color for the input fields. So we have to change the color of the text inside the input fields to black. So let's go back and let's go to the post. And let's go to the CSS, and here we can see we have the CSS for the input. So here I'll just add a line of code which is color and set it to black. And let's click on update. And now let's go back to our post and let's refresh this page. And now we can see everything is being displayed correctly. So if I just change something over here and if I click on calculate, we can see that the result is displayed over here and even the chart is updated. So everything is working alright. So that's basically how you add a loan calculator to your Blogger website. Alright, so that's it for this video. I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. And if you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.